Hey guys, tonight we travel back to a time when your morning alarm wasn't your phone. It was the sound of a rooster, a church bell, or, more often, someone yelling because a pig got loose in the street again. We're stepping into the muddy, chaotic world of the Middle Ages, where life was short, sleep was rare, and deodorant hadn't even been invented yet. You're about to find out exactly why you wouldn't last a single day in medieval times. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and tell me in the comments, where are you listening from, and what time is it where you are? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice is the smell. It's not just unpleasant, it's historical. You take a cautious breath, and it feels like the air itself has texture, a mix of manure, smoke, sweat, and something you can't quite identify but deeply regret trying to. The year, let's say somewhere around 1350. The place, a small English village. The vibe, we don't know what germs are yet, but we're doing our best. You step carefully through the uneven dirt road, trying to dodge puddles that look like they've been there since the dawn of time. There's a thin mist hanging over the thatched roofs, and chickens are everywhere, strutting, squawking, and judging you silently. A pig trots past with an air of confidence, as if it owns the place. Honestly, it probably does. To your left, a woman is throwing something out of a window. You assume it's water. You assume wrong. It splashes near your boots, and suddenly, you understand why medieval streets weren't exactly fragrant. Waste management, let's just say, the window, was taken quite literally. The medieval saying, "Garde l'eau," watch out for the water, was a polite warning shouted before dumping chamber pots. You really hope she forgot the phrase, not the manners. There's no plumbing, no sewers, and no understanding of bacteria, just buckets, ditches, and prayers. You look for somewhere to wash your hands, but that concept is centuries ahead of its time. Soap, if you find it, is made from animal fat and ashes, and it smells like it wants to fight you. People pass you with curious glances. Their clothes are rough, their faces weathered, and everyone seems to be carrying something. Baskets, tools, or children. You realize this is a world where no one's ever had a day off, unless you count being sick in bed with the plague. A bell tolls in the distance, deep and hollow. It's the village church announcing the start of the day, or maybe the end of someone's life. Bells serve both purposes here. You follow the sound, passing by timber-framed houses that lean like they're tired too. The ground squelches under your boots. Everything feels damp. Even the air feels used. You pause near a trough where a few villagers are washing their hands and faces. The water is cloudy, but they seem unfazed. Hygiene, you learn, isn't about cleanliness. It's about not being the dirtiest person in the room. Historians still argue whether medieval people truly didn't bathe, or just did so less frequently. Records suggest the average peasant might bathe a few times a year, often in spring when rivers warmed up. Nobles had access to private tubs, barrels lined with linen, filled with heated water, but even then it was more of a luxury event than a routine. You, a modern visitor, are starting to itch just thinking about it. And speaking of itching, you glance down and see why scratching seems to be the village's favorite pastime. Fleas, lice, and the occasional rat are as common as gossip. You hear squeaking from the shadows of a barn and catch sight of one, plump, brazen, and utterly unbothered by your presence. Rats are part of the scenery, slipping between legs and wagons like they own the economy. One scurries right across your shoe. You flinch. No one else does. Welcome to normal. You pass by a young boy playing with what looks like a ball, but turns out to be a bundle of rags tied together. His laughter is bright, cutting through the gray morning air. For a moment, you forget the filth and see the rhythm of life here, simple, harsh, and somehow enduring. People live, love, laugh, and sneeze, mostly sneeze, just like you do. Nearby, a baker is setting up his stall. The smell of fresh bread cuts through the stink of everything else, and it's heavenly. You drift toward it, stomach growling, but quickly realize fresh is a flexible term. Bread here is dense, coarse, and occasionally spiked with stone dust to make flour last longer. It could double as a blunt weapon in an emergency. A woman buys a loaf, bites into it, and winces as her tooth cracks. She doesn't complain, just mutters something about the devil's wheat. Dentistry, you recall, is also several centuries away from being pleasant. As you wander further, a stray dog trots up beside you. It's thin, scrappy, and friendly enough, though you can't help but notice its ribs. You reach to pet it but stop halfway, realizing you don't have your rabies shot in this century. Smart move. A man passes, pulling a cart filled with hay. He greets you with a nod and a toothless grin. His hands are calloused, his clothes patched and frayed. The average peasant's wardrobe consists of maybe 2 outfits, one for work, and one that's slightly less dirty for church. You're pretty sure his 2 are the same set. Morning, he says, voice raspy from a life spent yelling over wind and livestock. You new here. You nod, trying to blend in. Just visiting. You say. He chuckles. Ain't we all? He moves on, whistling a tune that sounds both cheerful and melancholy. The medieval mood in a nutshell. You stop by a small wooden cross near the road. Someone's carved initials into it, with a date you can barely make out. It's a makeshift grave marker, common in these parts. Mortality is casual here. Life expectancy hovers around 30 to 40 years, depending on luck, plague cycles, and whether your local lord decides you're useful. A breeze stirs the trees, carrying the smell of smoke from a nearby hearth. You head toward it, drawn by the faint promise of warmth. Inside, a woman is stirring a pot over an open fire. The walls are dark with soot, and the air is thick. She's humming softly, and two children play near her feet with carved wooden figures. You realize this is home, one room for cooking, sleeping, eating, and surviving. The family sleeps on straw, stuffed mattresses, which look cozy until you remember the fleas. The smoke you see curling through the roof isn't from poor ventilation. It's intentional. A smoky house keeps insects away, and if you choke a little, well, that's just a bonus cleanse for your lungs. She notices you, nods, and offers a wooden cup of all. Not beer all. It's warm, flat, and surprisingly safe, since water is often contaminated. You take a cautious sip. It's not bad, though it tastes faintly like bread had a crisis. Better than water, she says, smiling. You agree, even if your stomach has other opinions. You sit quietly for a while, listening to the sounds of the village outside, the clatter of carts, the neigh of horses, the distant echo of someone hammering iron. Life is steady, unhurried, and brutally practical. You think about your modern comforts. Hot showers, clean clothes, toothpaste, and suddenly they feel like miracles. Here, even something as simple as being warm and dry is an achievement. A rooster crows again, as if mocking you for your soft modern ways. You smile despite yourself. Maybe you wouldn't last a day here, but you'd remember every moment of it. And as you step back into the muddy street, the fog begins to lift, revealing a horizon of fields and cottages stretching into the morning light. The world is waking up, slow and stubborn, just like it has for centuries. Somewhere, a bell rings again, calling people to work, to prayer, or to whatever passes for purpose in a time when survival is its own full-time job. You take one last breath of the earthy, smoky air, feeling both grateful and slightly nauseous. Congratulations, you've survived your first hour of medieval life. Only 23 more to go. You wake to the sound of roosters again, or maybe it's just one very determined rooster that takes its job way too seriously. The light spilling through the cracks in the wooden shutters is pale and cold, reminding you that medieval mornings aren't about slow coffee and emails. They're about survival. Your stomach growls, which is your first mistake. In a world without refrigerators, grocery stores, or even basic hygiene, breakfast isn't a meal, it's a gamble. You wander out of the cottage, greeted by a thin mist and the unmistakable aroma of smoke and livestock. People are already up and working, because if you're not working, you're probably starving. A few villagers gather near the baker's hut, clutching coins or bartering with whatever they've managed to produce. Eggs, wool, or onions. You join the small crowd, pretending you know what you're doing. The baker emerges, flour streaked across his arms, and places a few loaves on the rough wooden counter. They look more like bricks than bread, but the smell, earthy and yeasty, pulls you closer. You finally get your hands on a small round loaf. It's hard, heavy, and warm. You take a bite and immediately, you realize why medieval dentistry was more torture than treatment. The crust could break a tooth. You chew carefully, tasting smoke and stone dust. The bread is made from a mix of barley and rye, maybe some wheat if you're lucky, and probably a handful of grit from the millstones. You're basically eating sandpaper that went to finishing school. To wash it down, you sip some all from a wooden cup offered by the baker's wife. Warm, flat, and vaguely bitter. It's called small ale, low alcohol, safe to drink, and consumed by everyone, even kids. Water, as you remember from yesterday's adventures, is an unpredictable health hazard. This is the medieval version of filtered hydration. You find a bench and sit, watching the village around you come to life. Chickens scuttle underfoot, a dog barks at nothing, and a man passes by pushing a wheelbarrow full of turnips with the solemnity of someone carrying gold. You realize food is life here. Every crumb, every sip, every scrap matters. A few houses down, smoke rises from a chimney. Someone's cooking porridge, barley again, mixed with water and maybe a splash of milk if the cow's in a good mood today. You wander closer, drawn by the smell, and the woman stirring the pot nods in greeting. Hungry, are you? She asks, her accent thick and melodic. Always, you admit. She laughs softly and ladles some into a small bowl for you. Best eat it quick, she says, before it grows cold, or legs. You glance into the bowl, slightly alarmed. It's grayish, lumpy, and steaming. It tastes is fine. Not good, not bad, just food. You can feel your energy returning, along with the faint suspicion that you might have eaten something that used to crawl. As you eat, she tells you how breakfast isn't really a thing. For most people, peasants usually just grab whatever's left over from the night before. Bread, broth, maybe cheese if it hasn't walked away. The concept of 3 structured meals a day is centuries away. Most people just eat when they can, which means your current breakfast might also be lunch. You thank her and move on, wiping your hands on your tunic, which now officially smells like everything else in this village. You catch sight of a nobleman's messenger riding through the main path on horseback, splattering mud on everyone as he goes. His boots shine, his cloak gleams, and his horse looks healthier than most of the humans you've seen. You sigh. Even breakfast has a class divide here. While you gnaw on barley porridge, nobles are feasting on roasted meats, sweet wines, and soft white bread made from finely sifted flour. Historians still argue whether the upper classes actually ate better, or just differently. But you're fairly sure their meals didn't come with gravel seasoning. You follow the messenger's trail, stepping carefully around puddles and piles of, you hope, mud. The air carries the scent of wood smoke and cooking fat. Somewhere nearby, someone's frying something. Your curiosity leads you to a small open-air market, where a few stalls display goods on rough tables. There's salted fish that looks like it could double as armor, hard cheese wrapped in cloth, and dried herbs hanging from strings. One merchant waves you over, offering what looks like meat pies. The smell is promising, but as you take a cautious sniff, you realize the meat's identity might be flexible. The man grins, missing half his teeth. Best pie in town, he says proudly. Could be pigeon, could be rat, depends on the day. You smile weakly and decline. He shrugs. Suit yourself, traveler. Don't know what you're missing. You actually do. And you're fine with that. A group of children run past, carrying wooden sticks and laughing. One of them waves at you, her face smudged with soot but her eyes bright. She offers you a small apple, shriveled but genuine, and darts away before you can thank her. It's the sweetest thing you've tasted all morning. You wander toward the fields beyond the village, where farmers are already at work. They move slowly, bent over rows of crops, mostly oats, barley, and turnips. You spot a man guiding a wooden plow pulled by 2 oxen. The soil is heavy, dark, and uncooperative. Farming here is relentless, and one bad harvest could mean starvation for an entire village. A boy nearby scatters seeds from a worn leather pouch, his motions rhythmic, almost meditative. You watch him, realizing this simple act is the backbone of civilization, feeding not just himself but everyone around him. You approach and offer to help, but after 5 minutes of flinging seeds in the wrong direction, the boy kindly suggests you rest your soft hands. Fair enough. By midday, the sun climbs higher, but warmth is rare. You find shade under a crooked oak and share some bread with a shepherd. He talks about the monotony of his days, watching sheep graze, fending off wolves, and sleeping under the stars. It's quiet work, he says, until it isn't. He tells you about a night when bandits raided their flock. The sheep scattered, the dogs barked, and in the chaos, he barely escaped. You listen, realizing that even in a world this quiet, danger never sleeps. He chuckles, chewing on a strip of dried meat. They say the wolves only come at night, he says. When it's the hungry men you should fear. You nod, thinking of all the things hunger can make a person do. As the day stretches on, you notice the rhythm of the village. The constant motion, the quiet cooperation. People share tools, trade gossip, and find comfort in the smallest victories. There's no time to dwell on boredom. Every hour is filled with something that needs fixing, fetching, or feeding. Around you, life hums with purpose. The baker's oven crackles again, the smith's hammer rings in the distance, and the air fills with voices, soft, rough, real. And yet, beneath it all, there's this unspoken fatigue, like the world itself is tired. You feel it in the air, in the slow drag of the afternoon, in the achy in your back from simply existing here. Still, there's a strange peace in it, a sense of belonging to the same rhythm as everyone else. By evening, as the light fades, you find yourself sitting by the village fire with a few others. They're eating their supper, stew made from beans, roots, and maybe a scrap of meat if fortune's kind. Someone passes you a wooden spoon. The broth is thin, smoky, and surprisingly satisfying. You listen as they talk about tomorrow's work, about rain and crops and saints. No one complains, they simply continue. And as the stars begin to appear, bright and unpolluted, you realize you're full, warm, and alive. For now, that's enough. You glance down at your hands, dirty, scratched, and trembling slightly from fatigue. You smile. You've survived another meal in the Middle Ages. That's more than most travelers can say. And somewhere in the distance, the church bell rings again, steady, haunting, eternal. Her word count 2 to 34. Morning creeps in again like a slow breath through the thatch roof above you. You wake up with a sore back, a stiff neck, and the distinct realization that medieval mattresses are basically straw burritos with extra crunch. As you roll over, bits of hay stick to your hair, your sleeves, even your dreams. You sit up, brush yourself off, and think maybe being fashionable here is about not being stabbed by your own bedding. You stretch, crack your joints, and glance around the single-room cottage. Everyone's already dressed and gone. Because getting ready in the Middle Ages doesn't take long when all your clothes look like varying shades of oatmeal. You find your tunic folded neatly by the fire, if folded neatly. means slightly less wrinkled than the floor. It's made of coarse wool, the kind that feels like it's been designed by someone who hated skin. You pull it over your head, instantly itchy. The feeling spreads like wildfire. You try to ignore it, but the itch wins. Welcome to medieval fashion, equal parts uncomfortable, impractical, and somehow status-defining. You step outside tugging at your sleeves, only to find everyone else looking just as uncomfortable. Men wear long tunics, usually belted at the waist, with leggings tied in place by string. Women wear layers of linen shifts, wool dresses, and aprons, all held together with pins or ties. If you're lucky enough to have a cloak, it's not for style. It's to survive the wind that cuts through everything like it has a personal grudge. The colors around you are dull, browns, grays, dirty greens. Dyeing fabric costs money, and peasants can't afford fancy blues or deep reds. You notice a merchant passing by in a brighter outfit, his tunic dyed saffron yellow. Everyone stares a little too long, which tells you two things. First, he's definitely wealthier than he looks. Second, that tunic probably smells faintly of onions. Historians still argue whether medieval dyes were as vibrant as paintings suggest, or if artists simply exaggerated for effect. Either way, your itchy brown outfit doesn't exactly scream fashion icon. You make your way to the well, still adjusting your belt. The villagers are already busy, women scrubbing clothes, men hauling buckets, children chasing geese that seem to be winning the chase. You nod politely, though it's hard to look dignified when your tunic keeps riding up like a rebellious blanket. A woman next to you chuckles. New cloth, she asks, noticing your discomfort. Feels like sandpaper, you reply. She laughs, showing a missing tooth. That means it'll last. Nothing worth wearing feels nice at first. You try to smile, though you're not sure if she's comforting you or warning you. She returns to her washing, her hands red and raw from cold water and lye soap. The soap, she explains, is made from animal fat and ashes. Effective, but the smell clings like gossip. You dip your hands into the water. It's icy enough to make your bones protest. As you wash your face, the cold wakes you up faster than coffee ever could. You glance down at your reflection in the rippling water. Between the dirt smudges and the rough beard shadow, even if you don't remember growing one overnight, you look like someone who's already lost a week's worth of battles to hygiene. You head back toward the cottages where a small crowd gathers around a traveling peddler. His cart is stacked with all kinds of wonders. Combs, ribbons, pins, even a small hand mirror. You reach for it instinctively, and the man grins. Glass from Venice, he says proudly. Finest in the world. You peer into it, and for the first time, see your medieval self clearly. Your hair's tangled, your face smudged, your clothes wrinkled. You look authentic. The peddler smirks. Fine look, traveler. You'll fit right in. You nod, then glance at the others. A few women are bargaining for ribbons, bright, precious scraps of color to brighten their days. Fashion, it turns out, isn't about comfort or practicality here. It's about hope. Every ribbon, every piece of lace or bead, says I'm trying to make something beautiful in a world that isn't. A man beside you adjusts his hood, clearly proud of it. Hoods are a medieval must-have. Half hat, half scarf, sometimes used as a disguise if you're up to something shady. He notices your interest. Good hood keeps the rain off, he says, tapping the fabric. And no one knows who you are when the sheriff's asking questions. You nod like you understand. You definitely don't. He winks and disappears into the crowd, which honestly is a pretty good endorsement for the product. You keep walking, your wool tunic now clinging in strange places thanks to the rising humidity. The streets are narrow, muddy, and full of people, each one wrapped in their own version of practical misery. Fashion here isn't just about looks, it's a reflection of class. You can tell who's who by the cut of their sleeves, the color of their cloth, and the material of their shoes. Speaking of shoes, you glance down and instantly regret it. Your feet are encased in leather, turn shoes, basically soft slippers stitched by someone with no concept of arch support. The leather soaks up moisture like a sponge, and every step squelches ominously. The road isn't paved, the puddles aren't water. You stop looking down altogether. Nearby, a nobleman rides through the street, his clothes dazzling in comparison. Rich velvet, fur trim, a bright blue cloak that looks like it costs someone their yearly wage. His boots shine, his gloves are soft, his face is clean. The villagers step aside, bowing slightly as he passes. You do the same, mostly because you're afraid of getting trampled by his horse. For a brief moment, you catch a whiff of perfume, sweet, floral, masking the human aroma that defines this place. Perfume, you recall, was used not just for vanity but survival. With no modern plumbing, it was the only thing standing between elegance and odor. Nobles carried scented pomanders, little metal orbs filled with herbs, to hold under their noses during especially pungent moments of life. You wish you had one right now. The nobleman glances your way briefly, then looks past you, as though you don't exist. You realize in this world, clothes determine whether you're seen at all. You wander to the outskirts of the village, where a small group of women are spinning wool. Their hands move quickly, expertly, transforming raw fleece into thread. They hum softly as they work, their fingers coated in lanolin. You sit nearby, fascinated. The wool they spin will become someone's tunic, cloak, or blanket. Every strand is a thread in the village's survival. One woman smiles at you. Want to try, she asks, holding out the spindle. You hesitate, then take it. The wool slips, tangles, and falls apart immediately. She laughs kindly. It takes patience, she says. And time. Everything here does. You hand it back, feeling humbled. She resumes her spinning, her rhythm steady as a heartbeat. The sight is oddly soothing, almost hypnotic. As the day drifts on, you start to notice the unspoken code of medieval life: what you wear, how it's mended, how it smells. These things define your place in the world. Even rips and patches tell stories of hard winters, of long work days, of survival. A young girl nearby is stitching her father's tunic, the fabric worn thin at the elbows. He needs it for Sunday, she explains. The priest says God notices torn sleeves. You smile. In a way, everyone here is sewing themselves into respectability, one stitch at a time. Later, as the sun dips and shadows lengthen, you find yourself by a small fire outside the smith's workshop. Sparks fly into the night as he hammers metal, the rhythm loud and constant. His apron is thick leather, his sleeves rolled, his face gleaming with sweat. You realize even his work clothes have a certain strength to them, functional, enduring, made to last as long as the hands that wear them. He pauses to take a drink, noticing your curious stare. Your tunic's riding too high, he says with a grin. Belt it lower. You'll look less like a fool. You adjust it obediently. It helps a little. Better, he nods. Now you look like someone who might survive winter. Maybe, you thank him, though you're not entirely sure it's a compliment. By nightfall, you've come to understand medieval fashion isn't about looking good. It's about staying alive. Wool keeps you warm even when wet. Layers protect against wind. Colors announce your place in a world obsessed with hierarchy. Still, you can't help but chuckle as you scratch at your itchy sleeves again. Somewhere in the 21st century, someone's complaining about a polyester tag in their hoodie. You'd trade places in a heartbeat. The fire crackles, and you find yourself staring into it, the flames reflecting off the metal tools and the smith's steady hands. The world around you smells of smoke, sweat, and something timeless: effort. You realize that even in the itch and the grime, there's beauty here. A quiet dignity, a sense of belonging to something older than fashion, something that survives every change of trend and every passing century, the stubborn will to keep going. You pull your cloak tighter, scratch one last time, and smile to yourself. You'll never complain about laundry day again. The rooster crows again, though you suspect this one does it just to assert dominance. You're up before the sun, rubbing your eyes and trying to remember what it feels like to wake up not already tired. The faint glow of dawn seeps through the cracks in the cottage walls. Someone outside is already chopping wood, the dull thunk of the axe steady as a heartbeat. Today's lesson: work, or more accurately, work that never ends. You step outside into the cold morning air, and the village is already alive. Smoke drifts from chimneys, carts creak down the dirt path, and people are moving with grim determination. Everyone has something to do, because in medieval life, rest is a rumor. A farmer waves at you from a nearby field. Up, stranger, he calls out. Sun's no friend to the lazy. You give a sleepy nod, though your body already feels like it's made of wood. He gestures for you to follow, so you trudge through the mud toward him, each step squelching like a complaint. He hands you a wooden rake and points toward a stretch of earth that looks both endless and impossible. Turn the soil, he says simply. The frost's lifting. Time to wake the ground. You get to work, awkwardly at first. The soil is heavy, damp, stubborn. Every motion feels like a negotiation. The farmer moves beside you with the rhythm of someone who's done this since childhood. His arms are strong, his back bent, his face unreadable. This land's our bread, he says between grunts. Treat it right, it feeds you. Treat it wrong, it buries you. You nod, trying to look wise while secretly wondering how anyone survives this kind of labor daily. The air smells of earth and effort. Your hands start to blister, your back aches, and it's not even mid-morning yet. A group of women walk past, carrying buckets to the well. Their steps are slow but steady, the wooden yokes across their shoulders balanced perfectly. The buckets look heavy enough to dislocate your arms. You realize this is just another morning chore, fetching water from a source half a mile away. There's no plumbing, no running taps, no quick showers. Every drop you use has to be earned. You pause to catch your breath, resting your rake against a fence. The farmer notices and chuckles. City folk, he says. Something like that, you mutter. He wipes his brow and looks at the horizon. We've no clocks, see. We work till the sun says stop. You glance at the sky. The sun isn't even properly up yet. Great. Behind you, a blacksmith starts hammering iron, the rhythmic clang echoing across the village. Each strike feels like punctuation in a long, endless sentence. You can smell the metal, the heat, the smoke, each breath tasting faintly of soot. You wander closer to watch. The smith's apprentice is hard at work, his arms trembling as he swings a hammer far too large for his size. Sparks fly, bright and angry. The master smith corrects him with a barked instruction, his voice cutting through the clamor. "Hold steady!" The metal listens to confidence. The boy nods and adjusts his grip. You watch as molten orange fades to dull gray, the iron slowly taking shape, a horseshoe maybe or a tool. The precision fascinates you. It's raw art, practical, physical, essential. "Want to try?" The smith asks, noticing your interest. You hesitate, then nod. He hands you the hammer, heavy and awkward, its handle slick with use. You bring it down on the anvil, and the sound shocks you. It rings in your ears like a church bell. You try again, this time steadier. The vibration travels up your arm. The smith grins. "Not bad," he says. "You might live through winter after all." That's the highest praise you've heard in days. But before you can savor it, the farmer calls you back. The field's not going to till itself. You sigh and return to the mud, shoulders heavy, hands already sore. The day stretches endlessly ahead, divided not by hours but by tasks. You realize something. The Middle Ages aren't built around time. They're built around light. People rise with the sun, work until it fades, and sleep when the dark leaves them no choice. Candles are expensive, firewood scarce, so night isn't for leisure. It's for rest, whether you like it or not. By midday, your stomach is growling loud enough to earn sympathy from the oxen. Someone passes by with a basket of bread and salted fish. You trade a small favor, help stacking hay, for a piece. The bread's as tough as always, but right now it tastes divine. As you eat, an older man settles beside you. His hands are twisted from years of work, his nails blackened with soil. "You're new," he says simply. "Just passing through," you reply. He nods slowly, chewing his bread. "No one just passes through work," he says. "It passes through you." You don't fully understand, but it sounds profound enough to remember. A group of children run by, carrying bundles of sticks. Even the young work, gathering firewood, tending animals, or learning trades from their parents. Childhood, you realize, is short here. Innocence burns fast when survival is the family business. Across the path, a woman is spinning wool again, her fingers moving with patient precision. Next to her, another woman mends torn clothing with a bone needle. A child sits nearby, grinding grain with a stone quern, the circular motion endless and hypnotic. The world around you hums with quiet productivity. And you, modern, fragile, perpetually online, feel like a fish tossed onto dry land. Still, something in this rhythm begins to make sense. It's not glamorous, but it's grounding. The simplicity has weight. No one checks the time, no one multitasks, no one complains that their schedule's full. It's all motion, effort, purpose. As afternoon stretches toward evening, the fields shimmer under the low sun. The air cools, but your body is still hot from work. You watch as villagers herd animals back to pens, goats bleating, cows lumbering, chickens doing whatever chickens do. The smell of manure hangs thick, but somehow it's almost comforting now. You're acclimating. You follow the farmer to a nearby well, where he fills a bucket and splashes water over his face. "Hard day," he says, "but better than no day." You do the same. The water is freezing but refreshing. Your reflection in the surface looks different. Tired, yes, but stronger. Maybe the medieval air is building something in you, layer by muddy layer. "Tomorrow's the same," he adds with a smirk. "Always is." You believe him. As the light fades, you help carry the day's harvest. Small bundles of herbs, a few vegetables, a basket of eggs, to the village square. The air buzzes with chatter as people trade goods, eggs for bread, wool for salt, tools for candles. The barter system feels both simple and impossibly complex. You watch a woman haggle fiercely over a chicken, her tone sharp but respectful. When she finally strikes a deal, the satisfaction on her face is unmistakable. Survival here isn't about wealth, it's about small victories. The sky deepens into gold and purple, and the first stars blink awake. Someone nearby begins playing a simple tune on a flute, slow, wistful, beautiful. The sound floats over the square, softening the edges of fatigue. You sit down on a worn bench, the smell of wood smoke and earth filling your senses. Your muscles ache, your hands sting, but there's a peace in it. Work here isn't a punishment, it's existence in motion. You think about your modern life, screens, alarms, endless notifications. Here, every moment is tactile, grounded, real. The world might be dirtier, rougher, harder, but it's also quieter, simpler. As the villagers drift home, you linger by the last embers of the communal fire. The farmer passes by, nods once and says, "You did all right today." Coming from him, it feels like a medal. You smile, stretch, and head back toward the cottage. The air is cool now, heavy with mist. You can still hear faint laughter from somewhere, and for the first time, you realize, beneath the hardship, there's contentment here. A stubborn, quiet joy that lives in the cracks of exhaustion. Tomorrow, you'll wake before dawn again. You'll ache, sweat, scratch, and survive. But for now, you lie back on your straw mattress, listening to the distant sounds of the village drifting to sleep. And before your eyes close, you think, just maybe, you're starting to understand why they kept going, day after day, century after century, without giving up. You wake to the gentle murmur of voices outside, soft, rhythmic, like a conversation the world's been having long before you arrived. The morning mist has settled over the village, blurring everything into grey silhouettes. Somewhere, a rooster crows again, a bit late to the party, and a dog answers with a lazy bark. You stretch, bones creaking, muscles protesting every motion. Your hands still bear yesterday's blisters, faintly red and raw. A thin layer of straw clings to your clothes. Welcome to another morning in medieval paradise. Outside, a few villagers gather near the edge of the square. There's an unusual buzz today, not quite fear, not quite excitement. You shuffle closer, drawn by the rare sense of anticipation. A man dressed in dark robes stands near a wooden cart. The sight makes everyone straighten instinctively. You quickly notice the symbol embroidered on his chest, a small iron cross, the local priest. He's young but carries himself like someone who's memorized authority. His eyes sweep over the crowd as he clears his throat. Brothers and sisters, he begins, his voice steady. Today, we prepare for confession and blessing before the holy feast. Ah yes, religion, the heartbeat of medieval life. You stand among them, unsure whether to bow your head or cross your arms. Everyone else kneels instinctively, murmuring prayers under their breath. You try to blend in, mumbling something that sounds vaguely reverent, hoping no one notices your confusion. The priest speaks about sin, redemption, humility, themes that float through the air like incense. His words are practiced but powerful, weaving between fear and comfort. He tells them that illness is a test, famine a trial, and death merely a doorway. You can feel the crowd sway with every sentence. For them, this isn't just belief, it's structure. It's how they make sense of chaos. A woman near you clutches a small charm around her neck, a piece of wood carved into a cross. Her lips move constantly in silent prayer. Another man holds a token carved from bone, something he insists keeps away, the fever that steals breath. Religion and superstition dance hand in hand here, impossible to separate. After the priest's sermon, a few villagers approach him one by one, whispering confessions. You can't hear the words, but their faces tell stories: shame, hope, guilt, relief. You wonder what your own confession would sound like. Forgive me, Father, for I checked my phone 300 times yesterday. Not exactly error appropriate. As the ceremony ends, the priest blesses the crowd with holy water, cold droplets catching the morning light. You feel one land on your forehead, and for a moment the world feels still. Then, as if on cue, someone mentions the church bell. It rings faintly from the hill above the village, marking the hour. The sound rolls down through the fields like thunder wrapped in silk. You follow the villagers toward the small stone chapel. It's modest but beautiful in its way, rough walls, narrow windows, a wooden door carved with faded saints. Inside, the air is cool and smells faintly of wax and damp stone. The light filters through the colored glass, painting sleepy rainbows on the floor. A few candles flicker at the altar. You kneel beside the others, your knees instantly regretting the decision. The priest begins another round of prayers, his voice echoing softly. The rhythm of it, slow and hypnotic, almost feels like a lullaby. You look around. Everyone's eyes are closed, faces wary, but peaceful. For them, faith isn't just ritual, it's the one constant in a world where plague, famine, and fire lurk around every corner. Historians still argue whether religion was more about devotion or survival back then. Maybe both. Maybe believing in something bigger was the only way to keep going when everything smaller could break you. A bell tolls again, signaling the end of the service. As the villagers file out, the priest gives each person a nod, a blessing, or a brief word. When you approach, he studies you curiously. "You're not from here?" he says softly. "Just visiting?" You answer. He smiles faintly. "Then may your soul travel safely too." You step outside, blinking in the daylight. The mist has lifted, revealing the fields in their muted beauty, patches of green, brown, and gold stretching toward the horizon. The rhythm of the village resumes instantly, like someone pressed play after a moment of stillness. You wander past a few huts and notice a woman drawing strange symbols on her doorway with chalk. She hums softly, a tune that sounds older than the church itself. "What's that for?" you ask. "Protection," she replies simply. "Keeps the spirits out." You nod, though you suspect the chalk line might be doing more for her peace of mind than for actual spectral security. Still, in a world of uncertainty, you take comfort where you can find it. Later, you find yourself helping an old man repair the church roof, a task you volunteered for mostly to avoid another day of plowing fields. He hands you a wooden mallet and points at the cracked beams. "Careful," he warns. The last helper fell through. You freeze mid-step. "Fell through," he grins. "Right into the char below." Sounded like thunder and swearing all at once. You climb cautiously. From the top you can see the entire village. Tiny dots of movement, smoke rising from chimneys, distant hills softened by haze. It's beautiful in a quiet, rugged way. As you hammer the final peg into place, the old man begins to hum a hymn. His voice is raspy but sure. You sing. "Stranger," he asks. "Not well, you admit." "Good," he chuckles. "Means you'll fit right in." Below, you spot a group of pilgrims passing through, Dusty travelers in threadbare cloaks, carrying staffs and small bundles. Their faces are sunburned, their feet bare, but their eyes hold something fierce purpose. They pause at the chapel, kneeling briefly before continuing on. You ask the old man where they're headed. Canterbury maybe, or Rome, or nowhere at all. Some walk for forgiveness, some for miracles. You nod, watching their figures grow smaller along the road. The idea of walking hundreds of miles on faith alone is staggering. Yet you can't help but feel a strange admiration. As evening approaches, the church bells ring again, calling everyone back for vespers. The sound blends with the low hum of crickets and the gentle clatter of carts returning from the fields. You sit near the doorway this time, letting the voices of prayer wash over you like waves. Outside, twilight settles gently. The candles inside flicker like stars caught in stone. You realize how central this place is, not just spiritually but physically. The church anchors the village, a compass for both faith and geography. After the service, the priest shares bread and wine with a few of the villagers. You join, more for the bread than the blessing, but the moment feels communal, sacred even in its simplicity. The wine burns your throat slightly. Strong stuff, you mutter. The priest smiles knowingly. Stronger than faith some days. A few villagers laugh. The mood lightens. Someone mentions the relic the church keeps, a splinter said to be from the true cross. Others whisper that it might just be a piece of old driftwood. Either way, it gives people something to believe in. The candles burn lower, shadows stretching long across the stone floor. You linger by one of them, watching the flame waver in the draft. For a moment, it feels like the whole world is breathing in rhythm with it, fragile, flickering, but steady. You step outside into the cool night. The stars are brighter now, untouched by the haze of modern light. The sound of distant chanting fades, replaced by the soft murmur of the wind through the grass. You find a bench near the chapel and sit, your body still, your thoughts drifting. Religion here isn't a debate, it's a heartbeat. It fills the gaps where reason ends and fear begins. You remember something the priest said earlier, may your soul travel safely too. You wonder what that means in a world where survival itself feels like a pilgrimage. A candle flickers out behind you. The night deepens. Tomorrow will bring new work, new acres, new reasons to kneel. But for now, under the medieval stars, faith feels less like a doctrine and more like a whisper, the kind that keeps you from feeling entirely alone. You wake before dawn again, this time to a smell you can't quite place, something sharp and smoky with a hint of fear. The village feels different today. The air hangs heavier. People move quickly, their voices hushed. Somewhere in the distance, a cow bellows like it's warning the world. You step outside, rubbing your eyes, and see a thin column of smoke rising from the other end of the village. Not the comforting kind that drifts lazily from chimneys. This one's darker, urgent. You follow the commotion, boots slipping on damp earth. As you round the corner, you see a group of villagers gathered near a small cottage, half its roof charred. The smell hits harder now, burned wood, singed wool, something bitter underneath. A man stands in front of the ruin, face blackened with soot, clutching a bucket he's too late to use. Lightning last night, someone whispers. Struck clean through the thatch. The crowd murmurs prayers. You stand there, heart heavy, realizing just how fragile everything here is. One spark, one mistake, one storm, and everything someone owns can vanish in minutes. The village priest is already there, murmuring blessings over the smoldering remains. His voice carries that practiced calm, but his hands tremble as he sprinkles holy water over the ashes. Beside him, a woman sobs quietly. Her children cling to her skirts, eyes wide and empty. The man finally speaks. It was the only home we had, and no one knows what to say. In a world without insurance, the best you get is sympathy and maybe a few extra loaves of bread. The villagers start to move, quietly helping, hauling water, gathering what's left, offering shelter. No grand speeches, no heroes. Just human decency, stitched together by necessity. You help too, lifting what remains of the roof beam. It's heavier than it looks, and the heat still radiates faintly through the wood. The man nods to you once, gratitude in his exhausted eyes. Later, as the firesight fades to silence, you find yourself thinking about how small safety feels here. A roof, a wall, a candle that doesn't tip over. Everything depends on chance, and chance is rarely kind. The smell of ash clings to you as you walk toward the well to wash. A few villagers are already there, whispering in low tones. The word curse passes between them like a rumor carried by wind. Wasn't lightning, one insists. It was bad luck, maybe witchcraft. You blink, witchcraft. The medieval solution to everything you can't explain. You remember that religion here fills the heart, but superstition fills the cracks it misses. By mid-morning, a kind of uneasy energy spreads through the village. People are tense, glancing over shoulders, locking doors. The priest tries to calm them, but even his words can't silence that old, primal fear that someone somewhere caused this. You overhear two farmers whispering by the fields. She keeps to herself, one says. Collects herbs at night. You mean Edith? The other nods. You know what they say. You feel your stomach drop. It's always someone like Edith. The quiet one, the strange one, the healer. The one who knows too much about roots and remedies. You decide to find her before the rumors do. Her cottage lies near the edge of the woods, half hidden by ivy. Smoke curls gently from the chimney. The air smells of rosemary and something sharp, like vinegar and moss. You knock softly. The door creaks open and a woman in her 50s peers out. Her eyes are clear, bright, and far too observant. "You're the stranger," she says, not asking but stating. You nod. "They're saying things in the village." She sighs and steps aside. They always do. Inside, her home feels like another world. Dry herbs hanging from the rafters, clay jars lined on shelves, the soft glow of candles flickering against stone walls. A small cat curls by the hearth, opening one golden eye to judge you before returning to sleep. "I heal what others can't," she says, mixing something in a wooden bowl. "And when they're well, they thank me. When they're not, they blame me." You watch her grind herbs into powder, her hands steady. "Do you think the fire was cursed?" you ask quietly. She glances up. "Everything's cursed if you're scared enough." You realize she's right. Fear is the real fire here. It spreads faster than any flame. She offers you tea made from wildflowers and bark. It tastes earthy, bitter, ancient. As you sip, she studies you with faint amusement. "You're not from here," she says again. "No," you admit. "Then be careful," she says, turning back to her work. This century eats the unfamiliar alive. When you leave her cottage, the sun is high, the air thick with unease. The villagers avoid your gaze now too. You suspect being a newcomer makes you nearly as suspicious as Edith. By late afternoon, the priest gathers everyone in the square again. His tone is firm but kind. There will be no talk of curses, he declares. The fire was nature's doing, not the devil's. The crowd nods reluctantly. But you can feel it. Their doubt still lingers like smoke. One woman mutters under her breath. Another man crosses himself 3 times, just to be safe. Historians still argue whether medieval witch trials came from fear or control. Standing here, you suspect it was both. Fear gave birth to suspicion, suspicion gave power to those who could name the danger. As dusk falls, you walk toward the woods. The air feels electric, alive with the hum of crickets. You find Edith again, sitting by the stream, washing herbs under the fading light. "They'll calm down," you say. She smiles faintly. "Until the next storm." You sit beside her. The stream glitters with starlight, and for a moment, the fear of the village feels far away. You ask what she's making now. "A balm for burns," she says. "For the man who lost his home." You blink. "You're helping him." She nods simply. "Hate burns fast, kindness lasts longer." You want to believe that's true. The two of you sit in silence, the sound of water soothing the edges of the day. Fireflies blink lazily in the grass, small sparks of beauty after so much destruction. Back in the village, the bells ring again. Soft, steady, grounding. You walk home slowly, thinking about how every century invents its own monsters. In yours, they wear suits and spread fear online. In hers, they live in forests and brew medicine from flowers. You reach your straw bed, the smell of smoke still faint on your clothes. You stare at the ceiling and think about Edith's calm, the village's fear, and the priest's trembling hands. Maybe none of them are wrong. Maybe survival requires a little belief in everything, the holy, the haunted, and the human. Outside, an owl hoots. Somewhere in the distance, thunder murmurs again. You close your eyes, half expecting the lightning to come. And when it doesn't, you finally drift off to sleep. Grateful, wary, and just a little more medieval than yesterday. You wake to the sound of church bells again, but this time they're not calling anyone to prayer. The rhythm is slower, heavier, more like an announcement than a summons. When you step outside, you see villagers gathering in the square, their faces somber. The priest stands by the well, his robe dusted with morning dew, holding a small wooden cross. Someone has died. It's not unusual. Of course. Death is as common here as dawn, but each time it comes, the village slows as though remembering how fragile its heartbeat really is. The body, a farmer you recognize vaguely from the fields, is laid on a wooden board near the chapel. His skin looks gray, his hands folded neatly over his chest. A faint smell of herbs drifts from the cloth that covers him. His family kneels nearby, silent but dry-eyed. They've done this before. You join the crowd standing at the edge, unsure whether to cross yourself or stay still. The priest begins the funeral rite, his voice steady, his words drifting through the cold morning air. "Earth to earth," he says softly, "ashes to ashes, dust to dust." The crowd murmurs a response in unison, the rhythm both haunting and strangely beautiful. You realize how death here is less a tragedy and more a continuation, one step in an endless, predictable cycle. The man's wife whispers something about the will of God. Someone else mutters about bad air from the marsh. You hear both and wonder which explanation offers more comfort. As they lower the body into the shallow grave behind the church, a boy throws a handful of soil in first, so he finds his way. The boy says quietly. The priest smiles sadly. "That's right, child." So he finds his way. When after the burial, people linger, not out of sentiment, but because the act of leaving feels like disrespecting the dead. They share bread and broth, sitting on rough benches, speaking softly. There's no weeping wail, no dramatic display, just an exhausted acceptance that this too will happen to them soon enough. You take a bowl of broth and sit beside an old woman who looks carved from the same wood as her walking stick. Was he sick long? You ask. Not long, she replies. Fever took him quick. She stirs her bowl, eyes far away. They say it's the damp air, but I think the world just gets hungry sometimes. Her words stick in your mind. The world gets hungry sometimes. You look around at the others. Tired faces, calloused hands, the quiet endurance of people who've seen too much loss to flinch anymore. There's no escaping mortality here, it's stitched into daily life. Later, you follow the procession as they carry candles into the chapel. The smell of tallow and smoke fills the air, thick and sweet. Someone starts a hymn, slow and wavering. The notes bounce off the stone walls and rise toward the rafters. It's beautiful and eerie all at once. Historians still argue whether medieval people feared death or simply accepted it. From where you're standing, it feels like both, fear wrapped in faith, resignation softened by ritual. After the prayers, the priest invites everyone to light a candle for their lost ones. You hesitate but then pick one up. The flame wavers as you set it down. The tiny light joins 100 others, flickering together in a pool of wax and shadow. For a moment, the whole chapel looks alive, like the souls they've lost are still here, dancing in gold. When the service ends, you step outside into the weak sunlight. The air smells of earth and wood smoke. Life resumes instantly as it must. A group of children run past, laughing. One of them tripping and falling face first into the mud. The others laugh harder. Even grief has boundaries here. You walk to the edge of the graveyard. The markers are crude, some just wooden planks, others stones with rough carvings. One has a small carving of a bird. Another just a cross and a name. You trace the letters with your finger, surprised by how recent the soil looks. People die faster than memory can fade. Nearby, 2 gravediggers lean on their shovels, wiping sweat from their brows. Never ends, one mutters. Not supposed to. The other replies. Else we'd run out of work. There's a grim humor in it, and somehow it fits. By afternoon, the village feels quieter. You walk through the market square, noticing how people avoid talking about the burial. But grief has a strange gravity. It lingers in gestures, in glances, in the way people move slower without realizing it. You spot Edith again, the herbalist trading jars of salve for a small sack of flour. She nods to you. Another one gone. You nod. Then I'll need to make more fever tonic. She sighs. The river's rising. The damp brings sickness. You help her carry her things back to her cottage. Along the way, she talks about how illness travels through the air, through water, through touch. It's her theory, though most of the villagers still think it's bad luck or punishment. Historians still argue about that. You murmur. She glances at you, curious. Who's historians? Never mind. When you reach her home, she thanks you and hands you a small charm, an amulet of woven grass. For protection, she says. You smile. From fever. From fear, she replies. As evening settles, you wander back toward the chapel. The candles inside still burn, their light steady and low. The priest sits alone near the altar, staring at the flames. You sit beside him without speaking for a while. Finally he sighs. I buried his father too, and his son last winter. You glance at him. How do you do it? Every time. He shrugs slowly. Someone has to say the words. You sit together in silence, the kind that feels like prayer without needing to be one. Outside, the moon rises pale over the fields. The graves gleam faintly in its light, neat rows of inevitability. You think about the farmer's boy tossing that handful of dirt, the gesture so small, so human. It hits you then. This isn't a world obsessed with death. It's a world that lives beside it. Every breath, every laugh, every piece of bread shared is a quiet rebellion against the constant reminder that time here runs short. As you walk back to your bed, the night feels softer. Somewhere, a dog barks once and settles. The bells are silent now. You lie down, staring at the thatched ceiling. The smell of wax and earth clings faintly to your clothes. Your thoughts drift, not to the fear of dying, but to the strange peace these people seem to find in its shadow. Maybe it's not that they accept death so easily. Maybe it's just that they've learned how to live despite knowing it's always close. Your eyes grow heavy. Outside, the wind rustles through the grass, whispering something almost kind. You fall asleep thinking that in this world, life isn't measured by years. It's measured by how many mornings you're lucky enough to wake up again. Morning breaks with the smell of smoke. Not the familiar kind from cooking fires, but heavier, darker. You step outside and see a column of it rising from the edge of the village, twisting up into the pale sky like a black ribbon. People are running. Someone shouts your name, though you don't remember ever telling them what it was. You follow the noise to the market square. A small cottage is burning. The thatch roof collapses inward with a hiss, sending sparks spiraling into the air. Villagers form a line from the well, passing buckets hand to hand. The rhythm is frantic but coordinated. They've done this before. The priest yells orders. Edith rushes past you with a wet cloth over her face, shouting for more water. Her hands are blistered, but she doesn't stop. You grab a bucket and join the line. The heat is fierce, an animal thing that breathes against your skin. Each time you pass a bucket forward, it feels like trying to hold back the sun. When at last the fire dies, the cottage is a skeleton. Charred beams lean drunkenly in the ash. A woman sits nearby, rocking back and forth, whispering a name over and over. Who lived there? You ask softly. Anna, someone murmurs. And her boy. You glance at the woman. Her face is blackened with soot. Her eyes look like hollow wells. They say she left a candle burning. Another villager mutters, shaking his head. God's punishment for carelessness. Edith turns sharply. God didn't light that candle, she snaps. It was an accident. But the crowd murmurs anyway, half prayers, half accusations. In a place where life feels so fragile, blame becomes a way to stay sane. Later, after the ashes have cooled, you find yourself standing beside the ruins. The air smells of wet wood and sorrow. Small things lie half buried in the dirt, bits of pottery, a melted spoon, the frame of a child's toy. The woman is gone. Only Edith remains, her face drawn and streaked with soot. I told her not to use tallow, she says quietly. Too thick, burns uneven. You nod, unsure what to say. There's nothing to be said, really. Edith sighs. It's strange, she adds. Why bury the sick but we burn the careless? Both end the same way. You look down at the ashes, remembering the boy who threw earth into his father's grave. You wonder who will throw earth for Anna. That evening, a council is held in the chapel. The smell of smoke lingers in everyone's clothes. The villagers sit on rough benches, faces lit by candlelight. The priest stands near the altar, hands clasped. We must rebuild, he says. And remember what? Someone asks bitterly. That God takes who he pleases. The priest looks tired. That life is fragile, and we must care for it. A murmur runs through the room, half agreement, half frustration. One man mutters about omens. Another mentions the recent fever. Fear spreads faster than any fire. Edith stands. If you want to honor her, then stop talking about curses and start fixing your roofs. That's what she'd do. The priest nods. We'll gather timber tomorrow. You watch their faces. Grim, soot-streaked, but determined. The kind of determination born not from hope, but necessity. When the meeting ends, people file out in silence. The only sound is the crackle of candle wicks. Outside, the night smells of rain. You walk past the ruins one more time. The embers glow faintly in the dark, like dying stars. You crouch and pick up a small fragment of wood. Half burned, still warm. It crumbles between your fingers. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolls. The first drops fall just as you reach your door. The rain comes hard and sudden, drumming against the roof, soaking the ground. You sit by the window, watching it wash the ash away. It feels like a kind of cleansing, but also a reminder nothing here stays untouched for long. As you listen to the storm, you think about how this village seems to live at the mercy of everything. Weather, sickness, fire, fate. Yet somehow it keeps going. Maybe that's the point. Survival isn't victory, it's defiance. You close your eyes, and the rhythm of the rain becomes almost musical, a lullaby for the living. When you wake, the world smells clean again. The sun glints on puddles in the square. Children splash barefoot through the mud. The blackened cottage still smolders faintly, but the villagers are already rebuilding. Lifting timbers, mixing clay, setting stones. You help them, your hands blistering from the rough work. But it feels right, real. Each motion is a small rejection of despair. Edith passes by with a basket of herbs, her sleeves rolled up, her hair streaked with ash. She smiles faintly. Told you we'd fix it. You smile back. You always do. She shrugs. We have to. Else what's the point of living? As she walks away, you realize how quietly heroic these people are. How they find meaning not in grand gestures, but in the simple act of rebuilding what the world keeps trying to destroy. By evening, the new frame stands, crude but upright. Smoke rises from nearby chimneys again, this time white and peaceful. The priest passes you a mug of ale. To her memory, he says, you raise yours. To all of them, he nods. Yes, to all of them, as the sun sets, painting the sky with streaks of gold and red, you feel something shift inside you, a kind of understanding. Death may own the ending, but the living own everything in between. The next morning, you're woken not by roosters' bells or rain, but by laughter. An odd sound in a place that seems built more for size. You pull on your rough wool tunic, scratch at the collar, and step outside to find half the village gathered in the square. There's music, if you can call it that. A man in a patched red cloak plays a fiddle that sounds like it's been dragged through the mud more than it's been tuned. Two women clap along and children twirl in circles, kicking up dust. You squint. What's going on? Fair day, says a farmer beside you, grinning through missing teeth. The Lord allows it once every few weeks, keeps people from losing their minds. It's true, the air feels lighter today. You wander through the small gathering. There's a table of pies, mostly onion, some questionably meat, a stand of wooden trinkets, and a man trying to sell what he swears are authentic relics of St. Cuthbert. though you're pretty sure the bones are chicken. You watch a boy toss stones at a wooden board, trying to win a dried apple. His aim is dreadful, but his determination is spectacular. The jester, the one with the fiddle, spots you and gives a mocking bow. "Hey, stranger!" "Come, good soul." You look in need of joy. "What's your trade, fool?" "Monk ghost." "Mostly just tired." You reply. He laughs. "Then you'll fit right in. Everyone here's tired. We just dance slower to hide it." You smile despite yourself. But not far away, the fun takes on a darker shape. Near the edge of the square stands a wooden platform. A man is tied to a post. His tunic is torn, his hair matted. A sign hangs around his neck: thief. The villagers gather around him, not jeering, but watching, waiting. The bailiff appears, reading something from a scroll. By order of his lordship, punishment for the theft of grain is 1 hour in the stocks. The crowd murmurs its approval, though you sense it's more performance than passion. The man says nothing as he's locked into the wooden frame, his hands and head trapped. A child throws a clod of dirt. It hits his shoulder and slides down like a tear. You look away, unsettled. The same people who dance to fiddles now throw stones. Entertainment and punishment, the jester mutters beside you. Two sides of the same coin, my friend. Seems cruel. You say. He shrugs. Cruelty passes the time. It's not the only spectacle on offer. Later, you hear the low roar of a bear from behind a tent. The animal is chained, pacing, eyes dull. A man shouts, "Come see the might of the wild beast!" See if your dog can face him. The crowd cheers. You don't stay to watch. You wander toward the stream instead, away from the noise. The air is cooler there, and you can almost pretend the world is gentler than it is. You kneel to splash water on your face. Across the bank, a girl throws stones into the current, humming a tune you half recognize. When she notices you, she grins. Don't like the fare. Not the part with the stocks. She shrugs. He stole from the Lord's barn. People get hanged for less. That doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it wrong either. She says simply, we don't make the rules, we just survive them. Her words linger as you return to the square. The crowd has moved on from punishment to drinking. All flows freely now, loosening tongues and morals alike. Someone's playing a drum made from a stretched animal hide, and the rhythm vibrates in your chest. You sit near the fire, half watching the dancers. Their faces glow orange, shadows flickering across their cheeks. It's both beautiful and eerie. Joy pressed out of hardship, laughter stitched into fear. A man beside you raises his mug. To another day not dead. He shouts. You raise yours back. Cheers to that. He chuckles. Historians will argue whether these were good times or bad. He says drunkenly, but at least they're their hours. You smile. You sound like a poet. He snorts. Nah, just pour. The night deepens. The music grows louder, wilder. A fight breaks out near the owl cart. Two men grappling over spilled drink or bruised pride. It's hard to tell which. They tumble into the mud, punching weakly until someone pulls them apart. Moments later, laughter resumes as if nothing happened. Life here doesn't pause. It simply reshuffles its chaos. The jester reappears, balancing on a barrel, shouting jokes to the crowd. 3 monks walk into a tavern. No, wait, 2 walk out. The villagers roar with laughter. He catches your eye again. You there? You've been quiet all day. You think yourself above our ways. You shake your head. Just trying to understand them. He grins. Ah, then you'll never leave. Understanding is a curse. He tosses you a small carved charm, a wooden figure of a bear, a souvenir, he says, to remind you that fun and fear are brothers. By the time the fire dies and the stars reclaim the sky, the square is littered with sleeping bodies, overturned mugs, and the faint smell of roasted meat. You lie back on the cool grass and stare upward. The constellations are unfamiliar, like a story written in someone else's language. You think about the thief, about the bear, about the laughter that seemed too loud to be pure joy. Everything here walks the knife edge between life and death, pleasure and pain. Somewhere nearby, a wolf howls. No one stirs. You close your eyes, the bear charm still in your palm. You can almost feel the rhythm of the village pulsing beneath you, raw, relentless, unpolished. Maybe that's the strange beauty of it, how they find ways to live loudly in a world that barely whispers. When morning comes, the square looks ordinary again. The stocks are empty. The musicians are gone. A stray dog noses at the ashes of the fire. You find the jester asleep under a cart, hat covering his face. You shake him gently. Hey, you didn't take your own advice about leaving. He stretches. I never do. Someone's got to keep the world entertained, even if it's cruel. He grins without opening his eyes, especially then. You walk away unsure whether to laugh or sigh. As the sun climbs higher, the smell of bread fills the air again. Another day, another chance to endure. And maybe that's the real show, the quiet performance of ordinary people refusing to vanish. You wake up coughing. The air tastes like copper. Somewhere nearby, a bell tolls, not the usual steady rhythm of morning prayer, but short, frantic bursts. You step outside, blinking into a world that feels wrong. The streets are quiet, too quiet. Doors hang half open. A dog noses at an abandoned basket whining. The smell of smoke and sickness lingers together, an unnatural marriage. A woman rushes past clutching a bundle of rags to her chest. You catch a glimpse of a child's face, pale and slick with sweat. The woman doesn't look at you. She's crying, but not loudly. People here have learned to cry quietly. You follow the sound of the bells to the churchyard. A small group stands by the gate, men with shovels, their faces wrapped in cloth. One of them notices you and gestures roughly. Stay back, don't touch anything. What's happening? You ask, though you already know. The pestilence, he says. It's back. The words drop like stones into your stomach. The pestilence, the Black Death. You've heard of it, of course. But standing here, seeing it unfold is another thing entirely. It feels like time itself is infected. You watch as they carry out another body, wrapped in linen. The priest murmurs something over it, his voice cracking. There's no ceremony, no hymns, just speed, always speed. You step back, dizzy. The air buzzes with flies. Inside the chapel, Edith sits by a cot, wiping sweat from a young man's forehead. He moans softly, his skin mottled with dark blotches. She looks up at you. Don't come closer, she warns. Her voice trembles, though her hands are steady. It's spreading faster than before. What can I do? Nothing, she says flatly. No one can. You stand helplessly, watching her dab the man's face. The smell in the room is heavy, sour, metallic, alive in the worst way. Historians still argue whether it came from rats or fleas. She murmurs as if reciting a memory. But does it matter? Death doesn't care about origins. You nod, throat tight. Outside, the bells toll again. One for each body. The sound blurs into a single endless hum. Days blur too. The village becomes a fever dream. Smoke drifts from every hearth as people burn herbs and rosemary, hoping to purify the air. Doors are marked with chalk crosses. Some families lock themselves inside and never come out again. You see men in long robes, faces hidden by bird-like masks stuffed with lavender. They move door to door, muttering prayers, holding canes to push back the sick without touching them. One looks at you and says, "Best keep your distance, traveler. The angel of death walks these lanes now." You want to laugh, but your throat's too dry. In the square, the jester's platform stands empty. The fiddler's bow lies snapped in the mud. Even laughter has fled. At night you hear carts rolling over the cobbles, slow, creaking wheels. No one speaks. The sound alone tells you what they carry. By the 5th day, the graveyard is full. They start digging trenches beyond the walls. You help, though your hands blister and your lungs ache from the smell. Edith works without rest. Her face grows thinner, her eyes hollow but fierce. You bring her water once, and she smiles weakly. "You're still here," she whispers. "Where else would I go?" She shakes her head. "Anywhere but here." You stay anyway. One afternoon, the priest collapses mid-prayer. The gravediggers bury him by moonlight, whispering that even holy men can't bargain with death. Someone mutters that it's God's punishment for greed. Another says it's the devil testing faith. Everyone needs a story to explain the unexplainable. But you notice something odd: some people recover. Not many, but a few. The baker's wife, who burned fever hot for a week, wakes one morning with clear eyes. A boy who coughed blood suddenly stops. Some call it mercy. Edith says, "I call it luck." She looks at the rows of fresh graves and adds quietly, "Mostly bad luck." You want to comfort her, but the words won't come. That night the air changes, cooler, cleaner. The wind carries the scent of rain instead of decay. It feels almost alive again. You walk to the edge of the fields, where torches burn low and the earth is freshly turned. The stars shimmer overhead, pale and distant. You whisper a clumsy prayer, not to any saint or god, just to the silence itself. When the first drops fall, you stay standing in the rain. The cold water runs down your neck, your hands, washing the dirt and ash from your skin. It feels like permission to breathe. By morning, the bells have stopped. The silence feels foreign, so deep it makes your ears ring. The few who remain crawl from their homes, blinking like ghosts. They don't cheer or cry. They just start sweeping, rebuilding again. Edith joins them. Her sleeves are rolled, her eyes rimmed red, but she hums softly under her breath. A broken tune. Maybe the one the girl by the stream once sang. You help her haul wood, patch thatch, scrub steps. The village smells of smoke and rain and survival. Later, you find the jester's red cloak hanging on a fence post. You pick it up. It's torn and stiff, but you fold it neatly, as if that small act might keep his memory intact. "Strange," Edith says, watching you. "We bury people, but we keep their things. Maybe it's easier that way," you say, "to hold what's left." She nods, thoughtful. "Or maybe things don't haunt us, we haunt them." You look around, the rebuilt roofs, the empty windows, the faint trails of smoke rising like ghosts. She might be right. As the sun sets, the world glows gold again. The air hums with insects, not flies. Somewhere in the distance, a bell tolls, not for death this time, but for evening prayer. You close your eyes and listen. This time it sounds like peace. You wake to the sound of hooves echoing on the road, sharp, commanding, not like the clumsy rhythm of village carts. When you step outside, a column of riders passes, banners flapping crimson and gold. Their armor glints under the pale morning sun, each movement a flash of light. Someone whispers, "The Lord's men." You follow the villagers toward the edge of the square. The soldiers halt beside the chapel, horses steaming, dust swirling around them. The captain dismounts, a tall man with a face that looks carved from iron. His gaze sweeps over the crowd. His lordship requires labor. He announces, "Repairs to the castle wall. 3 men from this village will serve a fortnight. No one volunteers. They never do." The captain's eyes find you. "You," he says, pointing. For a moment, you think he's joking. He isn't. By sundown, you're walking behind the horses, your boots sinking into the mud. Edith hands you a cloth bundle before you go. "Braid," she says, "and something stronger." You glance down. Inside is a flask that smells faintly of herbs. "For courage. For sleep," she corrects. "You'll need it." The castle rises on the horizon hours later, its silhouette enormous against the darkening sky. From a distance, it looks invincible, stone towers stabbing at the clouds, flags whipping in the wind. But as you approach, you see the cracks. Literally, the walls are splitting, the mortar crumbling. Scaffolds lean drunkenly against the sides, and masons move like ants, patching and chiseling. A foreman shoves a shovel into your hands. You dig here. Stones in the cart to the wall. "Don't get crushed." He walks off before you can answer. You start digging. The earth is heavy, wet from last night's rain. Your shoulders burn within minutes. Around you, others work in silence. Peasants, conscripts, maybe a few criminals paying off sentences with sweat. Above, the Lord's banner hangs motionless. By midday, you pause to drink. The water tastes of iron and stone. Someone nearby mutters, "All this work, and he'll raise the taxes again to pay for it." You glance up toward the keep. Through a narrow window, you glimpse movement, a flash of silk, maybe a figure watching. You wonder if the Lord even knows who bleeds for his walls. A younger worker beside you spits into the dirt. Historians still argue whether castles were symbols of protection or oppression, he says suddenly. His tone is half joking, half exhausted. You chuckle weakly. "Probably both." He grins. "Yeah. They protect the rich and oppress the rest." A bell rings, meal break. You sit under a half-collapsed wall, unwrapping Edith's bread. It's coarse but filling. The flask burns your throat, but it warms you all the way down. A mason named Hugh joins you, wiping dust from his beard. "You're new," he says. "Village conscript." "Something like that." He nods. "Don't get too close to the wall when they hoist stones." "Last week, a man's skull cracked like an egg. You decide not to eat another bite. When night falls, torches line the courtyard. Workers sleep in a low stable, huddled on straw. You lie awake, listening to the distant sounds of laughter and music from the great hall above. The contrast feels obscene. Wine and song echoing over the groans of the weary. You drift in and out of sleep, dreaming of towers that sway like trees and walls that breathe. The next day brings wind. It whistles through the scaffold, carrying dust into your eyes. A stone slips from a pulley and shatters against the ground, spraying shards. Someone curses, another prays. You notice the Lord himself watching from the parapet. Robes trimmed in fur, rings glinting. He speaks to no one, just observes, as if the suffering below is part of the architecture. At midday, you're called to carry water to the kitchens. Inside the castle, the air changes, cooler, scented with wax and meat. The floors are polished stone, slick underfoot. You pass servants in linen, their eyes downcast. A young boy carrying a silver tray nearly bumps into you. "Careful," he hisses. "The steward'll have your ears if you drop that." Does he treat everyone that kindly? The boy smirks. "Better than the Lord does." You deliver the water and linger in the corridor. Tapestries line the walls, scenes of hunts, battles, saints. They're beautiful, but they lie. No one here looks so clean or heroic. A door creaks open behind you. You turn to see a woman, tall in a pale blue gown, her face half hidden by a veil. "You're one of the laborers," she asks softly. You nod. "Just for a fortnight." Her gaze drifts toward the window. "I hear the walls are failing again." "They are." She sighs. "Everything built on fear eventually cracks." Before you can answer, a servant calls her name, Lady Isolde, and she glides away, her scent faint as lavender. You carry that phrase with you for days. Everything built on fear eventually cracks. When the work finally ends, the walls stand a little higher, the cracks disguised by new stone. The foreman signs your release with a smudge of ink. "Done well enough," he says. "You can go." You leave the castle through the side gate, glancing back once. From here, it looks eternal again, as if nothing could touch it. But you know better. You've seen what holds it up, not loyalty or faith, but exhaustion. The road home feels longer this time. Your hands ache, your back knots. But when the village roofs appear on the horizon, small and crooked against the setting sun, something like relief stirs in you. Edith meets you halfway down the path, basket in hand. "You survived," she says. "Barely, you always do." She gives you bread again, still coarse, still perfect. As you eat, she asks, "What's it like in there?" "Cold," you say. "Even the gold feels cold." She nods knowingly. We're poor, but at least our walls breathe. That night, as you lie by the hearth, the image of the castle lingers. The shimmering banners, the echo of laughter above stone floors. You realize that grandeur isn't comfort, it's camouflage. Out here under leaky roofs and uneven stars, people live and die honestly. Up there, they pretend not to die at all. You close your eyes, the warmth of the fire fading into sleep. In your dreams, the castle crumbles, not with thunder, but with a sigh. Weeks pass. The harvest begins, and life resumes its rhythm. Scythers whispering through the fields, carts creaking beneath the weight of grain. The castle remains visible from the far hill, a jagged silhouette against the clouds, always watching. Yet something in the air feels changed. The villagers speak in quieter tones, the laughter shorter, the silence is longer. Rumors drift like ash, of unrest in nearby towns, of men who refuse to pay taxes being taken away in the night. You try to ignore it, but unease seeps in, as steady as the rain that keeps the earth soft. One morning, as you're repairing a broken fence, a rider gallops into the village square. His horse is foaming, its eyes wide and rolling. The man's cloak bears the same crimson crest you saw on the Lord's soldiers. He doesn't dismount, only shouts, by order of his lordship. All men are to present themselves at the chapel by dusk. Weapons and tools will be inspected. No one leaves the village until further notice. Then he's gone, spurring the horse hard, mud flying behind him. You exchange glances with Edith, who has come out from her cottage, hands still dusted with flour. What now? She murmurs. You shake your head. Nothing good ever starts with orders shouted from a horse. But dusk, the entire village gathers by the chapel. Torches flare, their light dancing on worried faces. The captain, the same one who took you to the castle, stands on the steps, helmet tucked beneath his arm. There have been disturbances, he says, bandits, rebels. Some who once worked these lands have turned against their lords. His lordship commands vigilance. Any man caught sheltering strangers or concealing arms will hang. A murmur runs through the crowd. Someone swears under their breath. The captain's gaze falls on you. You've worked the walls. You'll know what they're after if they come, stone, iron, or food. Keep watch. Report anything suspicious. You nod slowly, and if they come for something else. He squints. What else is there? Blood. You say. The corner of his mouth twitches. Not amusement, not anger, something colder. Then bleed quietly. He mounts his horse and rides off, leaving only smoke and silence behind. That night, you don't sleep. You sit by the window staring toward the castle. Lightning flashes on the horizon, illuminating its towers. For an instant, they look like jagged teeth. Sometime near dawn, you hear movement outside, soft footsteps on wet soil. You grab the small axe by the door and step into the mist. Two figures stand by the fence cloaked, their faces hidden. One raises a hand. Peace, a voice whispers. We mean no harm. They're not soldiers, too thin, too quiet. You see a glint of rusted metal beneath one cloak, a makeshift blade. Who are you? You ask. Runaways, the taller one replies. From the mines near the river. We've walked 3 nights. We heard there's bread here. Edith appears behind you, shawl tight around her shoulders. There's always bread, she says softly. She invites them in before you can speak. Inside by the fire, the strangers eat with shaking hands. They tell their story between bites. Of collapsed tunnels, of guards who sealed the exits to save resources. Of men who suffocated in the dark while their screams echoed against stone. The shorter one, a boy no older than 16, stares into the flames. We buried them with our hands, he whispers. Then we left. You feel something inside you shift. Not pity, but recognition. The same weight that pressed down on you at the castle now feels heavier, closer. When morning comes, you help them hide in the old mill near the stream. Stay until it's safe, you tell them. If such a thing exists anymore. They nod, gratitude and fear tangled in their eyes. For the next few days, you bring them scraps, bread, water, dried herbs. No one seems to notice, or perhaps no one dares to ask. Then one night, the soldiers return. Their torches burn brighter than before, their voices sharper. The captain rides at the front again, and this time he doesn't call for volunteers. He calls for names. 2 fugitives have escaped the mines, he declares. They were seen heading north, perhaps through this village. Anyone found harboring them will suffer the punishment of traitors. You feel Edith's hand tighten around yours. Her pulse beats fast. The captain's eyes scan the crowd. For a moment they rest on you. You hold his gaze, steady, empty. He moves on. But after the soldiers leave, you know what must be done. You walk to the mill under a moon as pale as bone. The fugitives are awake, huddled near the wall. They'll search again. You say, you need to go. Now, where? The boy asks. South, through the forest. Follow the stream until it bends east. There's a ruined abbey. No one goes there. The older man nods, eyes glistening. You've risked your life for us. You shake your head. Just returning what was borrowed. When they vanish into the trees, you stand for a long time listening. Only the sound of the stream remains. The next morning, soldiers search every home. They find nothing. But as they leave, the captain rides close enough that you smell the metal on his breath. If they passed here, he says quietly, I'll find out. And when I do, your silence will hang heavier than their guilt. He spurs his horse, mud splattering your boots. That night, Edith sits beside you in the dark. You did the right thing, she says. Right doesn't feed us, you mutter. No, she agrees. But it keeps us human. You don't answer. Instead, you watch the castle lights flicker in the distance. For the first time, they don't look eternal. They look afraid. And maybe, just maybe, that's how the end of empires begins, not with rebellion or fire, but with quiet defiance in a forgotten village. A whisper, a shelter, a loaf of bread. Morning comes wrapped in fog so thick you can barely see your own hands. The fields are ghostly, the air damp and heavy, and for once, the roosters are silent, as if even they know something strange is brewing. You wake slower than usual, every muscle sore, your thoughts tangled somewhere between guilt and defiance. The castle bells toll faintly in the distance. Not for prayer this time. 3 long strikes. The signal for inquiry. Someone has been accused. You dress quickly and step outside. The village is stirring uneasily. People move in small groups, whispering, avoiding eye contact. A child clutches her mother's skirt, asking why the soldiers are here again. No one answers her. Then, over the murmurs, comes the word you hope not to hear: witchcraft. You feel your stomach drop. It starts with old Bera, the midwife, the herbalist, the one who's lived longer than anyone remembers. Her cottage smells of thyme and smoke. She talks to herself when she works, hums old songs, sometimes disappears into the woods at dusk. She's been the village's quiet miracle worker for years. Babies born healthy, wounds that closed without infection. And now, apparently, that's her crime. The soldiers arrive before noon. Their armor gleams, damp from mist. The captain dismounts, expression unreadable. By his lordship's decree, he announces, a matter of unnatural practice will be examined. You notice how he says examined, not tried. The distinction feels thin as paper. Old Bera stands at her door, stooped but steady. Unnatural, is it? She mutters. Then sows the rain in winter. Someone snickers nervously. Someone else crosses themselves. She's taken to the square. The crowd follows, not out of hatred, but fear, that contagious, creeping sickness that turns neighbors into strangers. You stay at the edge, arms folded. Edith finds you there. Say something, she whispers. You know she's harmless. Words don't help once the torches come out, you reply. A soldier unrolls a parchment. You are accused of consorting with spirits, healing with forbidden herbs, and causing the sickness that struck Lord Alaric's stables. Forbidden herbs. She scoffs. You mean parsley? A few chuckles scatter like leaves, but they die quickly when the captain raises his hand. He gestures toward a small wooden contraption nearby. Not a rack, not yet, but a crude seat bound with rope. You've heard of it. A ducking stool. If you're innocent, he says, the water will spare you. The logic is flawless. In the same way fire is clean, it leaves nothing behind to argue. They drag her to the riverbank. The fog drifts low over the water, a ghostly shroud. Her hands tremble, but her eyes, those sharp, tired eyes, stay fixed on the horizon. You people forget. She murmurs loud enough for those nearby. Every herb I used came from your gardens. Every cure from the earth we all share. Someone in the crowd murmurs, she's right. Another hisses, quiet. They bind her ankles, tie the rope to a wooden beam, and lower her slowly into the current. The water closes over her head, rippling once, then again. The river holds its breath. After a long moment she surfaces, sputtering, coughing, still alive. See, she gasps, still here. The crowd exchanges looks. That's not supposed to happen. She floats, says the captain coolly. A sign she resists the water's purity. 2 soldiers push the beam down. Her hands claw at the air once, then vanish. You turn away. When it's done, the village disperses silently. No cheers, no relief, just a deep, wordless fatigue. Edith walks beside you, her eyes red. She delivered half the children here, she whispers. Mine included. I know. She didn't deserve that. No one does. Back at your cottage you sit by the dying fire, numb. Outside, the fog begins to lift. It leaves behind a stillness that feels wrong, as if the world itself is holding its breath, waiting for the next accusation. Because once fear takes root, it doesn't stop with one victim. Over the next weeks you watch the pattern repeat. First whispers, then suspicion, then another test. A farmer's wife accused for her strange dreams. A boy blamed because his shadow looked longer than it should. Historians still argue whether these panics came from religion, ignorance, or sheer human loneliness. You suspect it's all three. A perfect storm of guilt and boredom, each feeding the other until reason drowns. One night Edith comes to you, eyes wild. They say you helped the fugitives, that you talked to old Bera before the trial. They'll come next. You stand, grab your cloak. Then we don't wait. You flee into the woods, branches snagging your sleeves, your breath loud in your ears. The moonlight filters through the trees, silver and sharp. Hours pass. The road ahead disappears into mist. Somewhere behind you, dogs bark. distant but drawing nearer. You and Edith stop by the ruins of an old abbey, the same one you told the fugitives about. Its stones are cracked, its roof gone, but it feels almost sacred in its abandonment. Inside you find remnants of frescoes, faded saints' halos chipped away, faces melted by time. You wonder how many prayers these walls once held, and how many screams followed them. Edith sinks to the ground, exhausted. Do you think it ever ends? She asks. The blaming, the burning, the fear. You look toward the broken arch where dawn is beginning to bloom. Not yet, you say quietly. But someday. Maybe when people learn to sleep without nightmares. There's a pause, long and fragile. Then she chuckles softly. You and your strange answers. Better than no answers at all. As morning rises, the forest begins to stir. Birdsong faint but returning, leaves dripping from the night's mist. For the first time in months, you feel a strange kind of peace. Not safety but stillness. Maybe this is what defiance looks like now. Not swords, not speeches. Just staying alive long enough to remember who you are. Somewhere far behind, the castle bells toll again. You can't tell if they're calling for prayer, punishment, or surrender. You take Edith's hand. Come on, you say softly. We've got a long way yet. And with that, you disappear deeper into the forest, leaving the fog and fire behind, two travelers wandering toward an uncertain dawn. The forest becomes your home for a while, your shield, your purgatory, your strange companion. Every day blends quietly into the next, the crack of twigs beneath your boots, the steady rhythm of rivers, the whisper of wind through trees older than any kingdom. The world of men, the markets, the soldiers, the endless toll of church bells, feels distant now, like a dream you've half forgotten. You and Edith make shelter beneath a ridge of mossy stone. She gathers herbs and roots. You build fires small enough that their smoke won't betray you. Sometimes you catch fish, sometimes you don't. Mostly you listen, to birds, to rain, to the slow patience of the woods. One afternoon, while mending your cloak, you hear something unusual, a deep, rhythmic thud echoing through the valley. You follow it quietly until the trees thin and the land opens onto a strange sight. Caravans, dozens of them. Bright fabrics flutter from the wagons, music spilling out, fiddles, tambourines, and laughter that seems out of place in a world still trembling from fear. Traders, travelers, outsiders. Edith catches up, breathless. "We can't," she starts. "Hide forever." You interrupt gently. You step into the open. The nearest trader, a man with a thick beard and kind eyes, looks up from adjusting a harness. "Lost?" he asks. "Found, maybe," you reply. He smiles at that, offering a hand. "Then welcome to the road. We're bound for the city of Florence. Heard of it?" You shake your head, though you've caught tales of a place where merchants grow rich from cloth, where people read and write not for prayers, but for pleasure. That night, you travel with them. The fire burns brighter than you've seen in months, laughter echoing through the night. Someone passes you a cup of warm spiced wine. It tastes like the memory of civilization. A woman beside you, her hair braided with coins, begins telling stories. Not of saints or curses, but of inventions, glass lenses that magnify the stars, presses that copy words faster than any monk's hand. Historians still argue, she says, eyes glinting in the firelight, whether the new ideas will save us or destroy us. But at least they'll make us think. You nod slowly, feeling a strange thrill. Thought itself, dangerous once, now celebrated. The world is changing again, and you're alive to see it. Days later, Florence rises before you. It doesn't shimmer like a fairy tale. It breathes like a living thing. Towers, bridges, bustling streets filled with color. The smell of bread and ink. You stand at the city gates, stunned. Edith grips your arm. We're really here. Inside, everything feels impossible. Markets burst with spices and silk. Painters stand in courtyards mixing pigments the color of sunrise. A boy recites poetry to strangers in exchange for coins. And no one looks at you with suspicion, only curiosity. You pass a stall where a man sells books. Real books, bound, printed, dozens of identical copies stacked neatly. He notices your awe. First time seeing a press's work. You nod. Gutenberg, he says proudly, changed everything. Now even the poor can read what once only priests could. You lift one gently, tracing the letters with your fingers. The words feel alive, humming with power. You imagine what old Bera would have said, how knowledge spreads like medicine, quiet but unstoppable. Edith buys a loaf of bread and 2 apples, and you eat them sitting on a stone step near the square. A street performer juggles knives nearby, and you both laugh when one nearly clips his own hat. For the first time, laughter feels safe. As weeks turn into months, you find work helping a mason repair walls near the river. The rhythm feels familiar, but here no lord looms above you. The pay is yours. The hours are yours. The air feels freer, as if the sky itself has widened. At night, you and Edith rent a small room above a candle maker's shop. The wax scent seeps into everything. Your clothes, your hair. But it's comforting. She begins learning letters from a local scribe who teaches children. You watch her trace each symbol carefully, tongue between her teeth. "Imagine," she says one night, smiling, "if everyone could read." You grin. Then kings would be out of work. She laughs softly, but her eyes stay thoughtful. Maybe that's what scares them. You fall asleep to the sound of the city breathing below. The chatter, the distant bells, the occasional bark of a dog. But even here, progress comes with unease. The more people talk about ideas, science, reason, free thought, the more the church frowns. Pamphlets are burned. Philosophers are whispered about. One morning, soldiers march through the square, pulling down a small wooden stall. Its owner, a thin man with ink-stained fingers, protests until he's silenced by a blow. You recognize the books they're burning, the same kind you once touched with awe. Fire eats the pages quickly, smoke rising like black prayers. Edith stands beside you, jaw tight. Different century. She murmurs, same fear. You think of all the people you've met. The villagers, the fugitives, the dead midwife, the soldiers, the storytellers. Maybe this is what history really is, a long argument between fear and curiosity. And here, in this city of marble and ink, curiosity is finally winning, if only by inches. Still, you can't help feeling something else stirring, something you can't name. The air feels heavier, as though every advancement carries a shadow. You overhear talk of wars, of new weapons, of kings jealous of merchant wealth. Progress doesn't erase ambition, it sharpens it. Historians will someday debate whether the Renaissance truly freed people, or simply gave them prettier chains. But for now, walking through the streets of Florence, with Edith laughing beside you and sunlight glinting off cathedral domes, you decide the debate can wait. You pass a group of painters arguing about perspective, one waving his brush like a sword. A boy reads a poem aloud to anyone who'll listen. A baker offers you bread warm from the oven. Life, for all its mess, feels new again. And in the quiet hours, when you walk by the Arno River and watch the lanterns reflected in its dark surface, you find yourself whispering gratitude, to time, to chance, to the simple stubbornness of survival. Because after all you've seen, mud and famine, plague and superstition, cruelty cloaked as faith, you've finally reached a place where the mind is allowed to wander. And maybe that's all anyone in history has ever wanted. Years pass quietly, though quiet, in this new age doesn't mean silence. The hum of Florence deepens around you, woven from hammer strikes, church choirs, and the chatter of merchants shouting the price of linen and glass. You've become part of it now, no longer an outsider crouched in the shadows, but one of countless small gears turning inside a world just beginning to understand itself. You and Edith live above the candle shop still, though now it's yours. The wax drips in steady rhythm as she pours, and you shape wicks while the scent of honey and smoke fills the room. Every evening, the windows glow gold with your work, tiny stars captured in jars. Sometimes travelers stop by and tell stories of places beyond Paris, London, Constantinople. They speak of new machines that spin thread faster than fingers, of maps redrawn by sailors who've crossed entire oceans. You listen, amazed, and wonder if the world has grown too big for fear to hold it anymore. One night, a scholar from Venice comes in to buy candles for his study. He notices the stack of books near your window, Edith's collection now well worn. You read, he asks. She does, you reply, grinning. I just pretend. He laughs, then lowers his voice. They should visit Venice. They say knowledge flows freer there. Even the church can't keep up. When he leaves, you and Edith sit quietly by the window, watching the candle flames dance. Imagine, she whispers, a world where no one burns for thinking. Maybe someday, you murmur. Still, the shadows of the old world linger. A rumor spreads about heresy in the city, and a few booksellers vanish overnight. Soldiers appear again. Different armor, same suspicion. You find yourself hiding certain pages under the floorboards, just in case. Progress moves forward, but always with a limp. Yet the change is undeniable. Children now learn to read. People question why things are as they are. And amid all the noise, art blooms like wildflowers through cracks in stone. You help deliver candles to the cathedral one afternoon and find yourself staring up at frescoes so vivid they seem to breathe. A man beside you whispers, "They say the painter sees God in geometry." You smile faintly. Then maybe God finally looks human. Outside, the bells toll again, still constant, still heavy. But this time they sound less like commands and more like conversation. You walk home by the river, the same river where old Bera once sank beneath the weight of superstition. The water glimmers in the sunlight, indifferent, eternal. And you wonder, if she had lived long enough to see this, to see people healed not by prayer but by reason, would she have smiled? Historians still argue whether the Renaissance truly ended the Middle Ages, or whether people simply changed their clothes and kept their fears. You think it doesn't matter. What matters is that you can walk through the city square now, buy a loaf of bread, and not bow to anyone while doing it. One evening, a storm rolls in. You sit with Edith by the open window, the scent of rain mingling with wax and smoke. Lightning flashes over the rooftops, painting the city in silver. You ever miss it? She asks suddenly. What? The village? The fields? Even the fear? It was simpler, wasn't it? You think for a while before answering. Simpler, yes. Better no. The past only looks peaceful because it can't reach us anymore. She nods, leaning her head on your shoulder. Still, sometimes I dream of it. The fog, the bell tower, the way the world felt small enough to hold. You smile softly. And look at us now. The world's too big to fit in one dream. The rain grows steadier, tapping against the window. You close your eyes and let it lull you, each drop a heartbeat from a time you've finally outlived. Tomorrow will come, as it always has, filled with noise and wonder, and maybe even peace. The world keeps unfolding, each century a breath taken deeper than the last. And though you know you'll fade into that history, forgotten like the millions before you, you find comfort in the thought that someone, someday, will read about people like you, the ones who survived long enough to see the dawn. You rise, extinguish the candles one by one, and let darkness reclaim the room. Outside, the storm softens. The streets shine with reflected light. The city sleeps, dreaming of tomorrow. And you, tired, wiser, still a little amazed, lie down beside the woman who chose the future with you. Somewhere beyond the clouds, the bells toll once more. But this time they sound gentle, human, almost kind. Wind down 300 words, so now, as the story fades and the echoes of centuries drift away, breathe a little slower. Let the hum of history dissolve into quiet. The mud, the rats, the torches, the prayers, they all fall still, like dust settling after a long storm. You've walked through entire eras tonight, from cold castles to candle-lit streets, and though your body stayed still, your imagination has traveled far enough to deserve rest. Think of the world you left behind, the flicker of fire in a stone hearth, the faint smell of wet earth, the voices of those who worked and hoped and feared before you. They were real once, just as you are now, ordinary people carrying heavy days through endless time. And maybe, somewhere deep in the hush between centuries, they still dream of warmth, of safety, of peace. You can let the images fade now. The castle walls soften to shadows. The cobbled streets blur into gray. The air grows gentle, wrapping around you like a blanket. Your breath evens, your thoughts drift. And when morning comes, the story will wait quietly, unchanged, like an old candle still holding the scent of its last flame. Sleep now, traveler. You've seen enough history for one night.